Welcome, everybody, to Casting for Two, the podcast, hosted by me, as always, Chris. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 218. I have a very great episode for you today, but as always, if you'd like to keep up in contact with me, you can do that on my Twitter and Instagram, both at Casting for Two. Or, you know what? If you want to check out the other podcast I do with the always beautiful, lovely, talented, smart Megan Johnson from tipsywriter.com, you can head on over to sundaybrunchpod.com and listen to that, or visit all the normal places like iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and there's this new app that I talk about, Public Radio. It's a great app, and I recommend everybody download it because it's awesome. You can also find Casting for Two at all those places as well. And, of course, Comic Bento, sponsor of the show. If you would like to receive a monthly comic book or graphic novel subscription, sign up for Comic Bento and use the promo code CASTING2. That's the word casting and the number 2, and get $5 off your subscription. Thank you. You're welcome. And so I should talk about my guest for today. My guest can be seen on the show People of Earth, which airs Mondays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, of course, for all my Canadian listeners out there, it will be on the Comedy Network starting on the 19th, September 19th. I have Mr. Ken Hall on the show, and he plays Jeff the Alien on the show, and it was really great chatting with him. Everyone knows how much I love comedians and stand-ups and improvisers, and he's an improviser, and I was just it was I like talking to improvisers, not gonna lie. I like talking to everybody, but improvise. You know what? I'm going to stop talking. Let's get into this episode. So sit back, relax, and Chris, cue the music, please.
Good. It's just kind of getting started here. Just had a late breakfast, early lunch, or late breakfast, late lunch.
Okay, so are you normally a breakfast guy?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love breakfast, man. Yeah. All day breakfast, big fan of that.
Okay.
Yeah, breakfast is great. And like one of my favorite things actually is like having cereal for dinner sometimes.
My friend's the same way. Like, she loves eating breakfast, but me, I'm just like, I'll just wait till lunch because that's when, the world of food opens up. Because it looks weird if I'm eating a hamburger for breakfast.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah.
It's like, meh.
It's funny how like some lunch things aren't really good breakfasty things. Like, yeah, breakfast burger. I feel like that would be that would be a tough one.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I feel like I would get looks if I ordered a breakfast burger.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's like that guy over there. The nerve of that guy. He just can't eat pancakes like the rest of us.
The agitator. Wanting to stir things up, man.
I know. It's just, I'm sorry. Well, people are a lot more sensitive these days, so.
Sure.
I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, you think we'd all get together with a breakfast, though, I think that would solve so much of the world's problems, man. Just have a breakfast buffet where, grab a plate, grab whatever you want, and let's sit down and break some bread,
I think you've cracked the code on how to fix this world. And now let me ask you a question, and this might be the most important question you ever get asked in your life.
All right.
What is the worst food to be eating in the middle of an argument?
Oh wow, that's a great question. Worst food? I would imagine something that's very crunchy, something that gives a lot of sound.
Okay.
Uh, Either something that's really crunchy or something that's the opposite. So it's like very slurpy sounding as well. It's hard to stay angry at someone when they're you know, like trying to get the dregs of their drink or something.
Uh,
Uh, yeah, peanut brittle perhaps. I don't know.
okay.
And peanut brittle or like something so dry and yet you don't have any water to drink. So that your
Oh.
mouth is just this
Yeah, it's like somebody's just eating some saltine crackers, and
yeah,
it's just and it's going everywhere because they're yelling. It's yeah, okay.
it's so messy.
So this is a pretty loose show, as you can tell. But one of the things I do like to know is when actors catch the certain bug. So for you, when was acting something you knew you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, for myself, it's I don't know when it exactly dropped, but I know there was a moment when I realized that what I thought initially was just a hobby
Hmm.
was actually so much more. And it was about maybe, at this point now, it's probably about maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. And I was working full time as an employment counselor here up in Toronto. And I wanted to go on a holiday.
Hmm.
And I'd never been to, actually, this is probably about maybe 8 or 9 years ago, actually. I'd never been in New York City before, so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take a holiday, but I'm gonna go. I'm also going to see if I can take any improv classes.
Yeah.
And there was UCB down in New York City that I was like, oh, they had this a 101 intensive, a 1 week intensive, and I'm like, this is so perfect. What a great holiday! I've never been to New York City before. Always wanted to check it out, and then I can jump into an improv intensive, which is my background. I love doing improv, and at that point, I'd only been doing improv for maybe about 5 or 6 years,
Hmm.
and so I went down there and it was just a great experience. And I was actually doing a show. I was part of a tournament here in Toronto, an improv competitive tournament called Cage Match. And I was part of a team called What Would Jesus Do? And I was the only one who dressed up. And I showed up at their first show, and I was the only one who dressed. I went out and I bought I rented some robes and a beard and everything, under the impression that everyone else was also going to do the same, and I was the only one that showed up in costume. And, but that being said, it was just a great experience, and we started winning, and it was so much fun. And then we were set to play that week, and just so happened that on the Wednesday there was no class as part of this 1 week intensive.
Hmm.
And I made the decision to actually fly back to Toronto to perform in this one show, to then fly back to New York City the next morning to finish off the intensive. And I realized at that point that this was much more than a hobby, and this was much more than just kind of like a casual thing.
Yeah.
This was something I really enjoy doing, and I love that idea of like going places to do shows and then travel to take a class. And so for me, improv was my acting class. And for me, that was a real defining moment for myself where I'm like, okay, this is just more than a hobby. And this is something that I really want to do. And I'm so excited to do it. And it doesn't matter if I'm not getting a lot of sleep. It's something that just brings me a lot of joy. And then once that moment happened, it felt like dominoes kind of fell, and I went from full-time career counseling down to part-time career counseling, and then and then make another transition into essentially doing no career counseling, because that time that so for example, going full-time down to part-time, my comedy partner and I, Isaac Kessler at Two Man No Show, we started playing festivals, and it was lovely. So like I'd finish work on like a Thursday afternoon, I'd fly to or I'd just go to Pearson International Airport and fly out and do a fringe festival, and then fly back on Monday morning. Like it was a great experience. And so for me it was like, yeah, that quote unquote holiday in New York City, that was the thing that was like, okay, this is something I really want to just keep doing. And the beautiful thing about improv and just saying yes and staying open to things, just opportunities just started to come, more and more opportunities started to come my way. And it made that decision to leave career counseling that much easier. And I decided to, it's just like, I liked career counseling, but there was something that was really missing from that. It didn't have that same feel that I had when I was like doing improv, when I was performing, whether it be film or TV, or whether it was teaching improv or teaching performing things or directing. And it was a great epiphany for me to be like, oh, wait a minute, like entertainment and making people laugh is actually helping people.
Right.
And that was kind of like that actually hit more of my criteria of like of why I got into the helping profession of counseling and such, because I was like, oh, I want to help people. And I just very linearly thought that, oh, that means counseling. So what is your problem? Great, let's work on your problem. Here you go. And I realized that it didn't have to be like that. It's doing what you want to do, and what really fulfills you and what brings you happiness is actually the very thing that can also really affect people on a very positive basis as well.
Right.
And so I basically career counseled myself out of career counseling.
That's yeah. So it's funny how those things work out. Just because
Yeah.
a new door opened for you, and you're just like, I'm gonna go through this door.
Well, that's just it. I mean, like, I think that at that time too, it's all these like little small doors. And I'm not making like a small joke. I am 4'9", but it's like these little. It's like going through life, but being aware of like these little opportunities, and you're just kind of like planting little seeds and just saying yes to these things that you just don't know where they're going to end up, where they're going to take you, and without that expectation of like, all right, if I say yes to this, then in 2 weeks I want something really good to happen. It's not that kind of mindset. It's just like, I'm going to do this because it really feels good, and at that same time, something, as you said, like there's a door open. There's something that comes from it. You're like planting little seeds that will one day hope to, bear some fruit.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a lot of respect for improv actors, just because the level of commitment they have. If the ship is sinking, they're going with the ship, and I have a lot of respect for that. But the ability to just think of things just so quickly, I've always been envious of that, just because I mean, in improv, somebody you just got to do it. You just can't think about it. Is it hard to get your brain to be trained that way, or is that something that is with people from their birth?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think some people are just kind of wired more in that sense, or people are like quick-witted. I think improv is literally for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I look at it too, because we see people like Holland Mockery who are like masters of what they do, and they're so great, and they've been doing it for so many years. But the process is like learning a new language. And once you learn that language, it just becomes effortless.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I also look at it now is that if you go into an improv scene, for example, and you look at your scene partner, like for example, if you and I were doing the scene, Chris, like I would just go in there and I'm like, whatever you say and do, I'm choosing to make that matter so much to me. And I break things down. There could be physical offers, there could be emotional offers, there's, vocal and verbal offers, but all that stuff matters. And I'm choosing to be affected by that. Mm-hmm. And I'm playing in response to whatever it is that you're saying or doing. So I'm treating it like just a heightened conversation. And that's when I think it's like, if you're in an improv scene in that moment of like, what do we do next? It's like, well, what just happened? And how can you respond to that? So in some ways, and I know that things can get really crazy and off the rails at times, but it's like, that's one thing that you can really ground yourself with, is just that focusing on your scene partner and making whatever they say and do really matter, and then just playing in response to that. And so, as you would in a conversation, right? Like in most conversations, you're not kind of like, what do I do now?
Right.
Sometimes that happens, for sure. Sometimes that happens. But generally speaking, it's just like, great, we're just having a conversation. and that takes the pressure off trying to be funny, and I think that you can sort of it's a bit of a shortcut to access that spontaneity and that creativity that I think we all have. We all have a sense of play, a sense of imagination, and such. I just think that we often put up these sort of obstacles and these things of like, oh no, I'm not the funny person, or I can't get up in front of people, and it's like, okay, well, you can if you want to.
Right.
Yeah, so but it's all great, but it is more of a process as well. And I teach improv here in Toronto, and it's at the Second City and such, and it is really interesting to watch people like slowly develop and they get it. And it's like, oh man, you see that improvement. I'm like, great, that person was actually really present in that scene, and they just really it boils down to just active listening, right?
Right.
Without having to make things funny. And I think that's the thing where they get kind of tripped up is that they see improvisers generally that are like, oh man, they're so funny and all these zany things, but they might not see that there's many little steps that got to that sort of zaniness that all sort of makes sense in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people try to perhaps emulate the more of the bigger kind of characters and reactions without building those steps to kind of get there, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like, there's different acting styles, Meisner, Schmeisner, and all those. I mean, for sure, improv could be considered its own beast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. And it's so funny here in Toronto, watching TV. And it's like, oh, there's an improviser, there's an improviser, there's an improviser in so many of the commercials because improvisers are so great of like thinking on their feet and coming up, with other alternative lines and things like that. So you give them a premise or an idea, it's that they can really, they can take a pretty good script and they can make it a lot better as well.
Yeah, yeah, and so when you were talking about how you were traveling and doing shows, do you
Mhm.
have one particular show that is didn't go well?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did a show actually out in the Maritimes here in the eastern part of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at a convention type of thing, and it was at the end of the day, and it was actually at the end of the weekend for these people that had been there, networking and doing like, workshops and businessy things.
Right, and they're kind of checked out at this.
Oh yes.
Yep.
Especially, and it was like we went on like, as I said, it was like the very last thing of this like weekend long excursion that they did. And so we're in this gigantic conference room in a hotel, and this is also after dinner
Mm.
too. So everyone is like had their dessert and really like winding down, and they just want to have a good time. They just wanted to drink. They don't want to have a good time with us necessarily, but and it just starts. They start talking in the back, and then it was just brutal. Like it's in such a big room. Like there's like I don't know 200, 300 people, and it's just hard to keep that focus. And so that for me was just painful. And we're wearing these lavalier mics.
Oh yeah.
It was so hard to improvise and be present in scenes where this thing was like, it's like I'm swallowing the microphone or it's just falling off. I don't even know it's falling off. And it was just a bit of a train wreck. And the funny thing is, yet there was still, a few people that came up to us and be like, wow, you guys are really great. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And there was like maybe like two tables
Yeah.
that like stuck it out. Like one of them is the organizer who was like, oh, I gotta stay. Look really bad if I just got up and left.
And were you wearing your Jesus costume?
No, that was
Oh.
that was it. Yeah, that was I retired that.
Okay, all right. I don't know. I don't want to tell you what to do. You're the professional, but maybe people would have stuck around if they saw Jesus doing improv. I don't know.
That's it. There you go. Right. That would have been that's the cure all. I think if you're losing your audience, just put on a robe and
There you go. And so how does and we'll fast forward to today.
Sure.
What's the process on getting to act on the show People of Earth?
Wow. It's just great. It's been the best thing I've done ever, and it's just amazing. It's just like a real dream come true, and getting to play Jeff and to get to play with the people that are involved in the show is just really it's just something else. I'm playing with people that have been doing this for years and are so good and just absolute pros that for me I'm just so lucky because I'm like great I can learn so much from everyone and the writing is really fantastic and the directors are just so great and yeah I love the effect that Jeff and the show has on people, and that people really connect with it and really resonate with it as well. And it's it's just I'm just so grateful to have this kind of experience.
Nice. Because yeah, definitely you look at the cast list, and it's like holy crap. There's just like tons of
Yeah,
improvs, comedy, SNL alums, all that. So it's just oh my gosh.
yeah, it's like comedy heavyweights, and I'm
I
like, are you sure you want me here? Anybody
well,
want more coffee or anything?
I no. And so what was the audition like for that? For getting the role of Jeff.
Um, so the audition was here in Toronto,
Hmm.
and just responding to uh, an audition for a pilot. It was called The Group back then,
Hmm.
not People of Earth, and it's a really cool experience actually because about a week or two before then was actually the very first time I started working with an acting coach. And it was just very serendipitous, as I was saying, looking for these small little, just being open to possibilities and opportunities and such. And so I got connected with an acting coach and I worked with him on a monologue for a theater that was doing some general auditions, and that went really well. And then, as I said, about a week or two later, that's when I got the audition for People of Earth, and I realized I'm like, oh, because as I said, improv has been my background, and it's been fantastic. But I realized too that uh, the vital importance of knowing your lines
Right.
and knowing all the nuances within that and knowing the script. And for myself, like when I perform, I really want to come from a state of play
Hmm.
and I want to be like in that state of fun and such. But if I'm not 100% of my lines, then I'm in my head. And that's when, I get self-conscious. I'm worrying about, am I saying it right? Am I tripping over words and things like that? So I'm just not as present and I'm just not as playful when I'm worrying about that. So working with my acting coach was just a great experience of realizing and recognizing I'm like, man, like it feels so good to go into an audition because you're going to get those nerves. And the cool thing is, if you know your lines inside and out, it's like muscle memory. It's in your body,
Right.
and you go in there because it's a pretty harrowing experience sometimes when you think about it. I'm going in here to deliver some lines in front of a camera, in front of a casting director, where I may or may not get booked for something that could lead to, bigger possibilities. There's a lot there and there's a lot of competition as well. And so for me, it was just a great experience to actually go in there 100% off book and so that I could play. And I went in there and I just did, I crushed it. I did a really great job. And then about a week or two after that, I got a call back for it and did that same process and went in there totally prepared. And Greg Daniels,
Oh
uh, he's the one of the executive producers, and he like he created The Office and
yeah, King of the
so
Hill.
the Hill. It's
Uh,
like, oh my God. And so I went in there and we did the scripted portion. He was like, that's great. Now we're going to give you some premises. And so he just gave me some premises. So I just got to play as Jeff and I got to improvise, which is like, oh man, this is great. And so we did that for 20 minutes or so. And long story short, that was a game. I think everything sort of fell into place at that point. I'm really happy that obviously that working with an acting coach, I don't know if I would have gotten the gig if I wasn't as prepared as I was going in there. And Yeah, I remember the moment my agent told me that I got the part, and she's like, "Yeah," I could hear it in her voice. She was like, "So like, oh, okay, something big is happening," and so she said, "Yeah, like they'll probably want you on a plane first thing tomorrow morning, fly you to LA," and I was like, "Okay." Sure enough, I was on a plane next morning flying out because they wanted to start working on the prosthetic and they needed
Right.
to do a mold and such. And but that was a pretty wild 24 hours because I was in LA, like walking along the Sunset Strip right by like the Roxy and the Rainbow and all these like iconic bands that have played there and all the history of LA
Yeah.
and to get to be down there because I'm part of this amazing show. It was just, as I said, a real dream come true.
Right. And then you went back to your acting coach and said, "I don't need you anymore. I booked a show."
I've learned everything I need to do. Really
And
funny. I first worked with him. I didn't realize this, but um, I kind of like wobble, like, because I'm sort of shifting. Like, as I'm on stage, I'm very malleable and like, I'm always moving around and such.
yeah.
But film and TV, like, it doesn't, it's like, why is this person moving so much? So he put sandbags on my feet the very first time I worked with him. I was like, I had
Uh,
no idea. It was like, oh, I get it. All right, great.
Ken, the camera's not that way. We need you to stand. Well,
Yeah.
can it be?
That
And
was a
then,
great lesson, such a great lesson. I never went to like, theater school or any of that stuff.
yeah,
It was just on an improv stage where, I really cut my teeth and yeah, so yeah, it's just great. Just really cool.
nice. And so, if there's, um, I'm blank. I know how to phrase this question, but I'm blanking. Okay, so if you could go into any movie, past or present, any
Mm.
role, which do you choose? Which movie and which character?
I don't know why I thought of this. The first one, I thought of The Fugitive, Harrison Ford.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
it's one of my absolute favorite movies. Like Harrison Ford is just so great,
Yeah.
and it's like that kind of movie. I could just watch it. Like I watch it at least like once a year, at
Okay.
least. And it always is just great. I love Chicago. I love, I love it's epic, and uh, I guess I've got pretty good stamina. I'm sort of in. I could definitely lose some weight for sure, but so it wouldn't be as long of a movie. It'd probably be maybe a 20-minute movie because I would just be like, great, I turn myself in.
The Fugitive, and it's just, oh, okay.
I didn't kill my wife, but I'm tired of running. I
Yeah.
just
I didn't do anything wrong, but I accept all responsibility.
oh my God, I should get my lawyer to find the
Oh,
one-armed man.
oh
What am
my
I doing?
gosh! And then it turns into a whole Law and Order episode. I think you have something here.
Yeah, there we go, right? Oh yeah, but yeah, I think that would be, The Fugitive really stands out, or pretty much any role that Harrison Ford has played.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I think he's got a pretty good CV.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So for the people at home who'd like to keep up with what you do, where can they do that?
Great. So, well, if you're in Toronto, I do many improv shows here. Film and TV. Um, I'm going to be. It's actually pretty cool. I'm going to be shooting a short film next month, and it's a director here, an improviser actually in Toronto here, named Alex Hatz. We're working together to create a short film, and it's this lovely. It's a dark, like Christmas tale, it's like a Christmas, I guess like Night Before Christmas meets Misery.
Oh,
Stephen King's
not,
Misery.
oh,
And
are you the Kathy Bates part?
no, I'm on the receiving end of the cat.
Oh, you're the James Caan.
Yeah, I'm the James Gunn. And this is great. It's like I believe he wrote it with me in mind, and it's going to be pretty cool, and it's going to be challenging. It's going to be very physical as well, and I'm really looking forward to something like that. And I like that challenge. I love. Yeah, I mean, doing the stuff that we get to do is just amazing because we're just, we get to play pretend and we get to like dress up and play all these wonderful scenarios and such. And this one is just like I like comedy, but I also like dark comedy as well.
Yeah.
In something that can really stretch me as an actor too. So it's really looking forward to that. It's coming up actually, and just just about a month or so, we're going to be going to camera.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
cool, nice. Well, Ken, I feel like I should let you go and get back to, I don't know, eating breakfast. Yeah, have breakfast for lunch.
Make some lunch. Cereal. Got some oatmeal.
But anytime you want to come back, just let me know. All right.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and like I said, have a wonderful day. All right.
All right, Chris. All the best.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.